It started with desperation. I was 26, living in a crumbling one-bedroom apartment above a pawn shop in Kent, Ohio. The radiators hissed like angry cats, and the windows leaked cold every time the wind blew. I'd been laid off from my full-time job as a dispatcher for a logistics company after they outsourced to some place in Arizona. It wasn't personal. It was numbers. It always is. For 4 months, I scraped by doing odd jobs, temp work, pet sitting, selling random junk on Facebook Marketplace. I applied to at least 100 places, grocery stores, office jobs, overnight stocking gigs. Nothing stuck. Most didn't even send a rejection, just silence. And when you're broke, that silence starts to feel like the world telling you that you don't matter anymore. One night in early November, I sat at my cracked kitchen table, laptop glowing blue in the otherwise dark room, Googling ways to make extra money fast. I landed on a forum where people shared their side hustles. One user, broke in Boston, swore by secret shopping, said it was easy money and almost fun. I clicked the link he'd posted. It took me to a CRAIGSLIST ad. Seeking mystery shoppers in Ohio, flexible hours, must have access to email and transportation, payouts $35 to $50 per shop, no upfront cost, immediate openings. It sounded scammy, but I was out of options. I emailed. Within the hour, I got a reply from someone named Denise Weston using a Gmail account. She sounded legit, used corporate-sounding language, attached a basic-looking PDF with instructions, and included a form for my contact info, PayPal email, and availability. I filled it out and hit send. The next morning, she emailed my first assignment. Evaluate an employee at Mayfair Market, a local grocery store chain I was already familiar with. This location was about 15 minutes away in a quieter suburb. The instructions were straightforward. Enter between 6 and 8 p.m., observe the employee working in aisle 4, canned goods, ask for help locating canned tuna, and then complete the customer interaction checklist. She emphasized, you must remain anonymous. Do not reveal you are a secret shopper. Submit report within 2 hours for payment. Honestly, it seemed doable. I'd been on the other side of this before. I worked retail in high school. We all whispered about secret shoppers like they were urban legends, employees competing over who had the best greeting plus eye contact routine. At 6:17 p.m., I walked into Mayfair Market in a worn black hoodie, taking shallow breaths to calm my nerves like I was going undercover. The store smelled like floor cleaner and overripe produce. I casually browsed the aisles to avoid drawing attention. Aisle 4 was quiet. The lone employee was a young guy, maybe 24 or 25, lean with light brown hair and hollow cheeks. His red vest said Miles in faded embroidery. He was shelving cans silently with that dead-eyed stare I remembered from my own late shift days. I paused by the end cap, pretending to read a coupon, then walked up to him. Hey, sorry to bug you. Could you help me find the canned tuna? He didn't look up. Middle of the aisle, left side, he said flatly, still stalking. No eye contact, no greeting, no offer to show me, just a vague hand gesture. Okay, thanks, I said and lingered, hoping he might recover the score by saying something parting. He didn't. I finally added, have a good night, just to close it. He glanced up then, his eyes dull and a little bloodshot. You too, he muttered, then stared. I wrote Miles on my phone notes and turned to leave. But as I moved down the next aisle, I got that feeling. The kind you get when you're walking alone at night and someone's behind you. I glanced back. He was watching me from the edge of the aisle. I kept moving. Each aisle I visited, I noticed him again. Sometimes near the produce, sometimes further back by dairy. Not stalking, just standing, watching. By the time I reached checkout, I was sweating under my hoodie. The cashier, a bubbly college kid named Amber, passed her secret shopper check easily, greeting, eye contact, a chipper, Enjoy your night." I smiled stiffly, nodded, and left. I hustled to my car, started the engine, then sat there with the dome light on typing out my report before I forgot the details. I mentioned that Miles failed the interaction, didn't greet or offer help, and made minimal eye contact. As I typed, a shadow moved across my windshield. I froze. It was him, Miles, storming across the parking lot with heavy strides. He didn't look at my car directly, but he passed close, heading toward an old black sedan parked 3 spaces over. He got in and peeled out of the lot so fast his tires chirped. I stared after him for a while, heart in my throat. Then I drove home. By the next morning, I had a $40 PayPal deposit and another assignment in my inbox. I moved on. 3 nights later, I was at my boyfriend Jesse's place. He lived in a duplex across town, eating Chinese food on the couch and watching reruns of Whose Line Is It Anyway? His dog, Mako, was asleep at our feet, twitching as he dreamed. Around 11:40 p.m., there was a knock at the door. No, not a knock, a slam. Then another, and another. Jesse paused the TV. We stared at each other. Mako sprang up and growled low. "Who the hell?" Jesse stood, walking to the window. I followed. We peeked through the blinds, and I felt my stomach bottom out. It was Miles. Same hoodie, same haunted eyes, but worse. Like he hadn't slept in days. He was pacing on the porch, muttering, then slamming his fists against the door again. I stumbled back. Jesse opened the storm door window. "Hey man, you need to get out of here, now." Miles didn't budge. He just slammed the door again and shouted, "I know what you did. You ruined everything." "What the hell is he talking about?" Jesse whispered. I didn't answer. My mouth was dry. My heart beat so hard it felt like it echoed through my arms. "I told you I was already on my last chance," Miles bellowed. "And you come in there, asking for fucking tuna, like you're better than me?" Jesse pulled me behind him and reached for his phone. I nodded frantically. "Call the cops." Miles kept shouting, voice cracking. "You cost me my job. You got me fired. You think you can just come into my store and ruin my life? You think you're safe? There's always an eye for an eye." He began slamming his body against the door. The wood cracked. Mako barked wildly, tail down, ears flattened. I grabbed Jesse's arm. He had to have followed me that night. There's no other way he could know where I am. "Shh," Jesse whispered, holding the phone to his ear. The dispatcher stayed on the line. Less than 2 minutes later, red and blue lights bounced off the walls. When the cops pulled up, Miles made a run for it, but not before one officer tackled him in the yard. Jesse and I stood frozen, watching from the window as they cuffed him. Mako's growls turned to whines. As they patted him down, one of the officers pulled a folding knife from his waistband. That's when I started shaking uncontrollably. In the days that followed, the detective assigned to the case told me a little more. Miles, real name Brandon Miles Henley, had been working at Mayfair for almost 2 years. He had a string of write-ups and was already on probation for failing a previous secret shopper report. The night I showed up, his girlfriend had broken up with him. His car had just failed inspection. He was already behind on rent. He wasn't just having a bad day, he was on the brink. My report had cost him his job. That much was confirmed. But the part I still can't get past? I never used my real name on the shopper form. And the email I used was a burner account. No ties to my real life. So how did he find me? How did he know I was the secret shopper? How did he know Jesse's address? One theory: the store had cameras. Maybe he watched them afterward and saw me riding in my car. Maybe he followed me and I never noticed. Maybe he wrote down my plate and found someone who knew how to track it. I don't know. What I do know is, I never secret shopped again. I turned down every assignment after that. I eventually found a steady job at a call center and slowly tried to forget the whole thing. Jesse installed a camera above the door. We moved a few months later, just in case. But sometimes when I'm in a store and I see someone shelving cans, I still wonder, do they know? Are they watching? And is there a line between helping corporations enforce meaningless standards and destroying someone's last thread of hope? Because I crossed it, and someone almost died because of it. I never thought I'd take a job from CRAIGSLIST. It wasn't that I was too good for it, I'd just heard too many horror stories. Sketchy meetups, no-shows, scams, or worse. But sometimes life squeezes you until all the safe options are gone. It started 3 weeks after I lost my full-time gig at the front desk of a dental clinic. They downsized. I'd been living alone in a studio apartment in East Morrow, scraping by with savings and odd gigs. The clock on my rent was ticking. When I got desperate enough, I messaged a friend, Emily, who always had a side hustle or 3 going on. She mentioned she'd done babysitting through CRAIGSLIST before. Just vet them hard, she'd said. Don't go in blind. Ask questions. Trust your gut. I'd babysat a lot in high school and college, and I was good at it. I figured it couldn't be that different now. It's just keeping kids safe and alive for a few hours. The first few postings I saw were either vague or shady, but then I came across one that looked normal, almost too normal. CRAIGSLIST posting, child care needed, Saturday evening. Hi, looking for a sitter for our 2 boys this Saturday, ages 6 and 9, from about 5:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Pretty laid-back household, just need someone responsible while we go out for an anniversary dinner. Pay is $120 for the evening. Message for address details. Thanks, Chloe M. Something about the post felt safe, simple. The tone was casual. The rate was generous but not suspicious. I replied. Chloe messaged me back an hour later with the address and a brief note. Thanks so much for replying. My husband and I will leave just after 5:30. Boys are Isaac and Dylan. Super easy. They've got dinner already. Just TV, games, maybe reading before bed. Should be a quiet night. We exchanged a few more messages. She seemed normal, even friendly. Signed off with a smiley face. It almost made me feel silly for being cautious. Still, I did my due diligence. I Googled the address, 1585 Brookfield Lane. It was in a cul-de-sac just outside town, near some older neighborhoods, but not far enough to raise alarms. I messaged Emily with the details, just in case. Text me when you get there, she said, and if anything feels off, leave. It was a dry Saturday when I pulled up the cracked driveway at 5:18 p.m. The house was modest, a single story with flaking blue paint and overgrown shrubs. A wind chime clinked under the porch awning. The porch light was already on even though the sun was still up. Something about it gave me a weird pinch in the chest. Not fear, just a tightness. I knocked. No answer. I tried again, this time hearing shuffling behind the door. When it finally opened, a man stood there. Late 50s, maybe 60. Tall, skinny, with thinning gray hair and a long, patchy beard. He wore a t-shirt with faded letters and jeans with paint stains. He squinted at me like he couldn't see well. You the babysitter? Yeah. Chloe messaged me. Said to be here at 5:30. Right, he said, scratching his head. She just ran out with the boys for snacks or something. You can come on in, though. She'll be back in 5. The way he looked at me made my spine tighten, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I stepped inside. The house smelled like dust and old cooking oil. The front room was cluttered with boxes, newspaper stacks, and a single recliner. The air was thick, stale. Sorry for the mess, he said, closing the door behind me. The lock clicked. We're, doing some reorganizing. No worries, I lied. He gestured down a narrow hallway. Living room's back there. TV, couch. You can wait there. As I walked, I scanned the place. No toys, no kids' drawings, no backpacks, no photos of children, just muted beige walls, framed generic art, and dust. I sat down on a worn brown couch. My phone buzzed. Emily. You good? I typed. Weird vibe, but okay so far. Chloe not here yet. Just the husband. He passed by the hallway again, muttering something under his breath. He was pacing. Every now and then he'd peek into the living room and say something like, "She should have been back by now," or "Sorry about this, just bad timing." The whole thing started to feel like a performance. At 5:45, I stood up. "I think I might just head out," I said, trying to sound casual. He looked alarmed. Wait, no. She's probably downstairs. I didn't hear the front door earlier, so maybe she came in through the side." He pointed to a door I hadn't noticed, one tucked in the kitchen, half hidden behind a curtain. "She goes down there sometimes with the boys. Craft stuff, art. She's probably waiting for you." The house had gone very quiet. I walked to the door and opened it. The basement was pitch black. A cold, earthy smell hit my nose. Mold, dust, and something metallic. Like rust. I stood frozen. "Go on," he said, voice too cheerful. "They're probably just setting up." I didn't move. My stomach flipped. "Actually, I just got a text. I think my ride's here early. I gotta go. I'm so sorry. Maybe we can reschedule." I turned and bolted toward the front door. Locked. He was still behind me. "Hang on a sec," he said, voice turning dry. "You haven't even met the kids." I fumbled with the deadbolt, heart pounding. Click. It opened. I didn't look back. I flew down the porch steps across the lawn to my car. My hands shook as I unlocked it. Behind me, I heard him yelling something. A name, a phrase. It didn't matter. I slammed the door shut and tore out of the driveway. My rearview mirror showed him standing in the front yard, hands in fists. I drove until I hit a grocery store parking lot 10 minutes away. Parked, cried, called Emily. She picked up on the first ring. "What happened?" I told her everything. "Call the cops," she said. "Now." The dispatcher sounded calm as I described the house, the man, the fake babysitting setup. She asked for the address and thanked me for reporting it. An officer called me 2 hours later for a follow-up. I told him everything again. He said they'd check it out. That was the end of it, at least officially. 2 weeks passed. I tried not to think about it. Got a temporary job at a pet supply store. Threw myself into normal routines. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. "Hi there. We saw your babysitting profile online. We have 2 boys, ages 6 and 9, and need a sitter this Saturday evening. $120 for the night. Let us know if you're available. Chloe M." Same phrasing. Same pay, different number. No way to trace the profile. I'd never even made a public profile. I blocked the number. 2 days later, another message came. Different number again. "Hey, found your ad. Looking for a sitter near Brookfield area. 2 boys. Easy night. Let us know if you're free. Tom and Chloe." The next day I changed my phone number. I moved 3 months later, changed cities, took Emily's offer to crash with her in Ridgewood until I got back on my feet. I never heard from Chloe again, but I've kept screenshots of every message just in case. Sometimes when I'm scrolling job boards, I still see similar listings, same tone, same rate, different names, different zip codes, and I wonder, how many people didn't trust their gut? How many went down the basement steps? And how many never came back up? It started with a pretty ordinary listing. I had just decided to sell my 2006 Honda CR-V. It wasn't a luxury ride or anything, but it was reliable, clean title, no major mechanical issues, and still had decent life left even with the 200,000 miles on it. The paint was a little faded on the hood, and the AC sometimes made a weird rattling noise when it kicked on, but nothing major. I'd taken care of it for years. Oil changes, tire rotations, brake pads, always on schedule. I'd just upgraded to a newer car a few weeks before and didn't want the old one sitting around collecting dust, so I figured I'd list it on CRAIGSLIST. That's where I'd bought it years ago, and I'd had mostly good experiences using the site before. People always say it's sketchy, but if you're cautious, it's fine. Or so I thought. I took about 10 pictures. Interior, exterior, odometer, even under the hood. Then I wrote up a simple but honest ad. I priced it reasonably at $2,800. Nothing suspicious, nothing too cheap. Just fair. The ad went up on a Thursday afternoon. Crickets for the rest of the day. But the next morning, around 10:30 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey, saw your ad for the CRV. My name's Tony. I've been looking for one of these. Still available?" I replied, "Yep, still have it. Want to come take a look?" He responded almost immediately. "Yes, I can come by tomorrow night after work around 8:30 or 9. That okay?" I paused for a second. It wasn't unusual for people to come late, especially if they worked odd shifts. Still, something about a stranger coming that late made me hesitate. But I lived in a decent-sized apartment complex on the edge of West Grove, a quiet suburb. My car was already parked in the open lot. He wouldn't even have to come near my apartment door. I replied, "That's fine. Just meet me in the parking lot. I'll be by the car." "Cool. See you then." The ex. Nothing about it raised red flags at the time. The next day I got the car cleaned up inside, vacuumed, wiped everything down, cleared my stuff out of the glove box and center console. Around 8:15, I put on a hoodie and went downstairs to wait by the car. It was dark, but not late enough to feel creepy. There were still people walking their dogs or coming home from work. I stood near my CRV, casually scrolling on my phone while glancing at every car that pulled in. At 8:58 on the dot, a black Dodge Charger with tinted windows pulled into the lot. It rolled slowly past me before stopping in a visitor spot 3 spaces away. The driver's door opened, and a tall man stepped out. He looked to be in his mid-30s, maybe a little older. Bald, muscular, lots of tattoos covering his forearms. He wore a black Carhartt jacket and dark jeans. He had this sort of intense energy, like he was always ready to argue, even when he wasn't saying anything. But he smiled as he walked over. "You selling the CRV?" he asked, voice a little deeper than I expected. "Yeah," I said, forcing a polite smile. "You must be Tony." "Yep." He walked around the car, taking a look at the body. "Looks clean. Been driving it a lot. Mostly just to and from work. It's been solid for years. No leaks, no overheating. I had the timing belt done at 180,000. Got paperwork if you want." He nodded, pulling out a small flashlight to inspect the tires. "Can I check under the hood?" "Sure," I said, popping it. We went through the usual motions. He asked a few normal questions. Didn't seem like a car guy, but enough to pass for someone interested. "Mind if I take it for a quick spin?" he asked. "I'll need to come with you," I said automatically. "Just company policy." I tried to laugh, but he didn't. Tony grinned, but there was no warmth behind it. "No problem." We got in. I directed him around the block, then down the main road where he tested the acceleration. It wasn't a long drive, maybe 10 minutes, but it felt longer with the silence. He didn't talk much, just stared ahead with a clenched jaw. "I like it," he said finally. "Feels solid." When we got back, he pulled into the same parking spot as before. I stepped out, hopeful. "So, what do you think?" I asked. He looked at me for a beat, Yeah, I'll think about it, he said, tone flat. I blinked. Oh, okay, sure. And then casually he asked, Hey, mind if I use your bathroom real quick before I go? That moment froze in time. It was like a needle drop in a movie. Every instinct in me tightened at once. Yeah, I'd rather not, I said, keeping my tone even. Nothing personal, I just don't let strangers into my place. Tony didn't respond at first. He just looked at me, hard. His smile faded. There was an awkward silence. Then he nodded slowly. All right, no worries. I gave a small wave and turned to walk away. I didn't head to the nearest side door like I normally would. Instead, I circled the building to the front entrance, just in case. When I reached the front doors, I looked back. No one was behind me. Relieved, I headed inside. The entryway was quiet. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. When the doors opened, I stepped in, hit 3, and leaned back against the wall. It took less than 30 seconds to reach my floor. When I stepped out, I turned left toward my apartment and stopped. At the far end of the hallway, the door to the stairwell opened. Tony stepped through. At first I thought, no, hoped, it was just someone who looked like him. But I knew it wasn't, it was him. Same jacket, same walk, same unreadable stare. My blood went ice cold. I didn't say anything. I just turned around and walked, fast, in the opposite direction. I tried not to run. But then I heard it. Footsteps, fast ones, heavy, behind me. I did run then. Full sprint to the other end of the hallway. I didn't even think. I shoved open the stairwell door and bolted down the stairs, heart hammering against my chest. I could hear him behind me, closer than I wanted. Down 2 flights, then into the underground garage. The echo of our footsteps rang through the concrete. My breath burned. I didn't head to my car. I didn't know if I had time to unlock it. Instead, I ran to the next stairwell, slammed the door behind me, and bounded up to the ground floor. When I burst through the exit door on the side of the building, cold air hit my face. I ran, across the lot, to my CRV. Hands shaking, I unlocked it, jumped in, locked the doors, and turned the key. The engine started. I peeled out of the lot and called 911. The dispatcher kept me on the line as I circled the nearby blocks. I explained what happened, described Tony, his car, everything. 5 minutes later, I saw flashing lights back at the complex. I returned slowly and parked on the street. Tony's Charger was still there. Officers found him trying to force open the patio door of a first-floor apartment. He had no tools, no friends, no money on him, no actual interest in buying a car. That night, I realized how close I'd come to letting something terrible happen. He hadn't planned to buy anything. That car ad was just bait. He wanted an address, a face, and a window of time. I deleted the CRAIGSLIST ad that night, never used the site again. And now, whenever I sell anything online, I meet people in the police department parking lot. No exceptions. I used to work the night shift at a small roadside hotel just off the highway. It wasn't glamorous, more like stale coffee, flickering lobby lights, and the occasional drunk guest arguing about a checkout fee. But it paid the rent and let me save a little. The good thing about that shift was the quiet. After midnight, aside from the odd check-in, I was mostly left alone behind the front desk. I'd spend those slow hours scrolling CRAIGSLIST, mostly for fun, checking the free section or electronics listings. People gave away the weirdest stuff: broken treadmills, entire dining sets, baby clothes, even working TVs from folks moving cross-country in a rush. At the time, my TV had just died, a hand-me-down Toshiba that finally gave up after years of abuse. Watching Netflix on my laptop was starting to get old. I wasn't looking for anything fancy, just something that worked. One night around 2 a.m., Halfway through a gas station sandwich and a lukewarm cup of coffee, I came across a listing. 50-inch LG flat screen -1 $20 lightly used. The photos weren't generic. This wasn't some sketchy reseller. The TV was sitting on a cheap stand in a dim, cluttered living room. A couple of moving boxes were stacked nearby. It looked legit, like someone genuinely getting rid of stuff. $120 wasn't suspiciously cheap, just cheap enough for someone trying to get rid of it quickly. The ad had only been up for 28 minutes. I sent a short message. "Hi, I'm interested in the TV. Still available?" Then I went back to half watching the hotel's security cams and checking in a trucker who smelled like diesel and regret. An hour later, I got a reply. "Hey, this is Kara from Craigslist. Yes, still available. You can come by tomorrow after 6 if that works." Her name wasn't on the listing, but that wasn't unusual. I texted back, "7 works for me. What's the address?" She sent it. A place on Willow Terrace Drive, a quiet neighborhood about 10 minutes from my apartment. One of those older parts of town with big lawns and tired one-story houses. I looked it up on maps. Seemed safe enough. "Cool, see you then," I texted back. The next day after my shift, I stopped at an ATM and pulled $140, just to cover any weird change situations. It was still light out when I pulled into the neighborhood. Birds chirped. Kids rode bikes. A guy across the street was mowing his lawn. The address Kara gave me was a beige house with a sagging porch and slightly overgrown grass. Not sketchy, just, neglected. A place someone's aunt might have owned for decades. I parked along the curb, stuffed the cash in my jacket pocket, and walked up to the door. Before I knocked, it opened. A woman stood there, average height, dark hair in a messy bun, sweatshirt with a faded college logo, and leggings. Early 30s, maybe. "Hey, you must be Alex?" she said. "That's me," I nodded. "Here for the TV." "I'm Kara. Come on in. Sorry about the mess. We're kind of between things right now." The inside matched the outside. Sparse, dim, a few boxes near the wall, furniture halfway moved or packed. The only light was a small lamp in the corner. "No worries," I said casually. "Looks like how my place did before I moved in." She chuckled. It sounded tight, like she didn't actually find it funny. "It's back in the bedroom," she said, gesturing down a hallway. "Right this way." Something felt a little off. Maybe it was how quiet it was. No background noise, no TV, no fan, not even the faint hum of a fridge. But I followed her anyway. The hallway was narrow, faint footprints in the carpet. She stopped at the last door on the right. "Right in here," she said, and opened it. I stepped inside and stopped cold. There was no TV. The room was empty. No bed, no boxes, no furniture. Just a blank room with dusty blinds drawn shut. Then slam. The door shut behind me, locked. I turned instantly and twisted the knob. It rattled but wouldn't open. "Kara?" I called out. No answer. "What the hell is this?" I pounded the door. "Open up." Silence. I checked my phone. No signal, not even one bar. I took a shaky breath. The kind of breath your body takes when your brain realizes something is really wrong. I pressed my ear to the door and listened. Voices, muffled, 2 of them. Kara and a man. I hadn't heard him until now. "Let me out," I yelled. "I'm calling the cops." No reply. I crossed to the window. Tried the latch. It was brittle, locked tight, barely moved. Okay. Panic was starting to bubble up. I paced, looked around for something, anything I could use. But the room was bare. I went back to the door and pounded harder, shouted louder. Still nothing. Then I had an idea. I opened my phone, found the alarm app, cranked the volume and hit the loudest siren it had. I tossed the phone into the far corner and pressed my back against the wall beside the door. Waited. Footsteps. Heavy. Rushing. The door creaked open. A man stepped in. Tall, stocky, wearing a black hoodie and scuffed jeans. His eyes went straight to the phone, clearly trying to shut off the noise. That was my window. I lunged, slammed into him with everything I had. His shoulder clipped mine, but I was through before he could grab me. The hallway was a blur. Kara stepped out from the living room, eyes wide. She reached for me. I ducked, nearly slipping over a box. I didn't stop. Out the door, across the porch, keys already in my hand. I hit unlock as I ran, yanked open the car door, threw myself in, slammed it shut, locked it, and started the engine. They were on the porch by then. I didn't look back. I peeled out, tires screeching. Didn't stop until I hit a gas station 3 blocks away. I ran inside and told the cashier, "Call the cops, please. Someone just tried to trap me." The police took my statement. I gave them Kara's number, the address, the ad info. When they drove me back to the house, empty, lights off, curtains drawn, no sign of anyone. A neighbor poked their head out and told the cops the house was supposed to be vacant. Owner was out of town on a business trip. "They've been gone all week," the neighbor said. "Nobody's supposed to be in there." CRAIGSLIST ad, deleted. Kara's number, disconnected. My phone, still somewhere in that house, was gone too. The officer told me it wasn't the first time they'd seen setups like that. People lure you in with a sale. Sometimes it's a robbery, sometimes it's worse. They never caught Kara, or the guy. I bought a used TV from a pawn shop the next week, and I never used CRAIGSLIST again. I wasn't even looking for a car at first. My son Jake had been pestering me about getting his license and wanted something reliable to drive to his classes and part-time job. At first I brushed it off, but after weeks of him showing me listings, test scores, and practically begging me to take a trip to the DMV, I gave in. He was turning 18 in a few weeks, and I figured it'd be the perfect surprise. He had no idea I was planning anything. I didn't have a huge budget though. After some searching on all the usual sites, Auto Trader, Facebook Marketplace, Cars.com, I started to get frustrated. Everything decent was either too expensive or sold within hours. The only place I hadn't checked was CRAIGSLIST, which I'd mostly avoided because of all the horror stories. But out of desperation, I gave it a shot. To my surprise, I stumbled on a listing that almost seemed too good to be true. A 2004 Honda Accord, silver, clean interior, 68,000 miles, no accidents, and all for $3,500. The photos looked genuine. The car didn't have that overly polished, dealer-touched-up look. It was sitting in an unpaved driveway surrounded by trees with a slightly dusty finish. It looked real, like something a regular person would sell. The seller's name was Rick. He lived in a small town called Red Hill, about 20 minutes from me. I called him that evening. He sounded older, maybe late 50s, with a calm and polite tone. Said he was selling the car because his daughter had moved to another state and left it behind. "Runs like a dream," he told me. "I just had the brakes and battery replaced. No surprises." We agreed to meet the next afternoon. I told Jake I had errands to run and headed out with the cash tucked inside my jacket pocket. It was a cloudy Thursday, the sky threatening rain. And I remember how quiet the drive felt once I turned off the highway and onto a series of narrow, tree-lined roads. Red Hill was barely a dot on the map. His address led me to a long gravel driveway that wound uphill through thick brush and old oak trees. At the top sat a small single-story house with chipped paint and a sagging front porch. There was no Honda in sight, just a rusted green pickup with mismatched tires parked under a carport, but the house number matched the listing. I parked on the shoulder and walked up. The driveway crunched under my boots, and I noticed the silence. No birds, no wind, just the faint hum of my engine cooling down behind me. The front door had a knocker shaped like a lion's head, but no doorbell. I knocked once, then twice. No answer. I waited. 5 minutes went by. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. I tried calling Rick's number, and that's when I heard the ringtone, faint and tinny, coming from inside the house. That was when something started to feel wrong. I walked over to the window beside the porch, cupping my hands to the glass. Inside it was dark. The curtains were pulled halfway, but I could make out part of the living room. There were stacks of newspapers, old furniture covered in sheets, and what looked like a stuffed animal propped up in an armchair. Except it wasn't an animal. At first I thought it was some kind of mannequin. It was wearing a hoodie, slouched over in the chair, with pale skin and glassy eyes that didn't look like plastic. I stepped back, heart starting to pound. I tried telling myself I was being paranoid. Maybe it was just a weird sculpture or a doll, but something told me not to go any closer. I walked around to the side of the house where a garage door stood half open. Inside were rows and rows of car parts, doors, bumpers, seats, all stacked and labeled. It was too organized for a junker, too clean. There was no sign of the Accord. Just as I turned to leave, I noticed another figure through the rear window of the house. This one was standing back turned, perfectly still, facing the backyard, like it had been placed there. I knocked lightly on the glass, feeling a sick sense of dread. No movement. The back door creaked open slightly from the wind, revealing a dark hallway beyond. I could hear the ringtone again, faintly, same tune, echoing from deeper inside the house. Then it stopped. I took a step back. The window blinds that I had just looked through snapped shut fast. Someone had been standing there watching me. That's when I ran. I didn't care about the money anymore. I sprinted to my car, jumped in, locked the doors, and floored it. The gravel kicked up behind me, and I didn't stop until I hit the main road. Later that night, I checked the CRAIGSLIST ad again. It was gone. Rick's number? Disconnected. I reported the incident to the police, but without a plate number, without a real name. There wasn't much they could do. They said the property had been abandoned for years. The man I spoke to, whoever he was, had been using a burner phone. Jake never found out what happened. I ended up getting him a certified used Civic from a dealership instead. He was thrilled. But every so often when I'm driving alone at night, I think about that pale figure in the chair. The stillness of it. The perfectly clean parts in the garage. The phone ringing inside an empty house. And I wonder how many other people answered Rick's ad. I didn't stop driving until I hit the main road. My chest was tight, and my hands were shaking against the steering wheel. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting that old pickup to come roaring down the road behind me. It never did. When I got home, I locked all the doors and sat in my car for a while, just staring at my phone. I opened CRAIGSLIST again to see if the post was still up. It was gone, completely scrubbed. No Rick, no Camry, nothing. I tried calling the number again, disconnected. That night I barely slept. I kept seeing the back of that figure in my mind, standing silently, staring out the door. The more I thought about it, the less certain I became that it was taxidermy. It hadn't moved, sure, but there was something too perfect about it. Too posed. Like whoever had arranged it wanted it to look lifelike. The next morning I filed a police report. I didn't embellish, just told them I responded to a CRAIGSLIST car ad, drove to the house, and found something deeply disturbing. I left out the part about thinking the person might have been stuffed like a trophy. They'd never take that seriously. To my surprise, the officer I spoke to didn't look at me like I was crazy. "You said the ad's gone?" he asked, typing slowly. "Yeah. It disappeared right after I left." He paused for a second. You'd be surprised how often we hear about stuff like this. CRAIGSLIST lures, fake sales, and sometimes worse. Worse? I asked. He didn't answer. A week later, I got a voicemail from a detective. They'd gone out to the property. The house was abandoned. No one had lived there for at least a year. The neighbors didn't know a Rick, and there were no vehicles registered to the address. The pickup truck was gone by the time police arrived, but they found something else. In the basement, behind a false wall, there were photos, lots of them, printed from an old-school camera. Dozens of people, mid-conversation, sitting in their cars, smiling at the front door. A few looked scared. One photo showed a man walking around the back of the house, just like I had. They told me one of the photos was of me. They never caught whoever had been staying there. They think he squatted in foreclosed homes, used untraceable numbers and burner ads to lure people in. Maybe not even to kill them, just to scare, control, or worse. Nobody knows what happened to the others in the photos. I deleted CRAIGSLIST that night, and I haven't tried to buy a used car since. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd knocked one more time, or walked further into that backyard, or lingered just a few minutes longer. But I didn't, and maybe that's the only reason I'm still alive to tell this story. I never thought a second-hand hockey net could put my son's life in danger, but it did. And even though this happened more than 20 years ago, there are nights I still dream about that truck stop, the lights, and the sound of his scream. Let me back up. It was 2002. I lived in a quiet suburb called Brookville, Illinois, a place where people left their doors unlocked and neighbors still brought over casseroles. My wife, Denise, worked nights at the hospital as an RN, and I worked from home fixing up and flipping used cars in our garage. Not exactly glamorous, but it paid the bills. Our son Ryan was 11, obsessed with hockey like most Midwestern kids his age. He idolized Jeremy Roenick and had a slap shot that nearly broke our fence. We couldn't afford to enroll him in a travel league, but we did everything we could to keep the dream alive. He'd rig up goals made of trash cans or tree branches, but it wasn't the same. That winter he begged me for a real net, not one of those toy ones. He wanted a full-size regulation goal. We checked local stores, but everything was too expensive, even secondhand. That's when I remembered CRAIGSLIST. Now, if you were around back then, you know CRAIGSLIST wasn't what it is today. It was basically a digital garage sale. No flashy graphics, no ads. Just a plain ugly site full of listings. But if you were lucky and fast, you could score big. I once got a snowblower for free. Still works. So one night, I found it. Regulation hockey goal, slightly used, $50. Comes with puck and 2 sticks. Must pick up. Call for details. No images, just a short sentence and a phone number. I stared at the listing for a bit. My gut told me something was off. But when you're a dad watching your kid's eyes light up at the idea of something he's been dreaming of, you push the doubt down. I called the number. A man answered on the 3rd ring. Yeah? Hi, I'm calling about the hockey goal you listed. He paused, then said, Oh. Yeah, still got it. You want it? His voice was low and flat. Not creepy exactly, just emotionless. Like he didn't care either way. I do. My son's been looking for one. He didn't say anything for a second. Then, I'm up in Merrillton, but I can meet halfway. Gotta be after work though. 9 or so. Merrillton was a little over 2 hours north of Brookville. Meeting halfway would put us somewhere off the interstate, maybe a rest stop or a gas station. I can do that, I said. You'll bring the net? Yeah, I got a pickup. My buddy's got the sticks and puck. He'll follow me. The hairs on my neck stood up. Something about the way he said that. Detached, like he was reciting a script. But again, I pushed it down. We made a plan to meet at a rest stop off I-90 near a town called Whitfield. I told Denise I'd be back in 2 hours. Ryan begged to come. I told him no, then caved. He promised to stay in the van the whole time. That decision still haunts me. The drive was uneventful. Ryan talked about hockey the whole time, about how he'd be able to actually practice now. It made me feel good, like I was doing something right. We pulled into the rest stop around 8:50. It was quiet, just a vending area and a line of parking spaces under yellow-orange floodlights, the kind of lighting that makes everything look haunted. I parked under the brightest pole light and told Ryan to stay in the van. If anything feels weird, lock the doors, okay? He nodded and gave me a thumbs up. At exactly 9:06, a black pickup truck rolled in and stopped 10 feet in front of us. It looked old but well-maintained. Tinted windows, no license plate on the front. I got out, walking slowly. The window rolled down. A man sat inside, bald, middle-aged, maybe early 40s. He had a square jaw and mirrored sunglasses on, at night. "You Steve?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. "My buddy's got the stuff. Should be pulling in behind me." I looked at the back of his truck. Empty. Not a net in sight. My stomach turned. "Why didn't you bring it all in one truck?" He shrugged. "Couldn't fit." At that moment, 2 more trucks pulled into the lot. One backed in behind me, the other parked to the right. Both were older pickups. Same style, same tint, and neither had any hockey equipment. Something clicked in my brain. Not panic, instinct. I turned and yelled, "Ryan, lock the doors now." He did, fast. Then the men started getting out. All of them, 6 in total. Big guys. Some looked like construction workers, others like they lived in weight rooms. They didn't say anything, just stared. The bald guy stepped out, adjusting his coat. He nodded at the guy in the truck behind mine, who started walking toward the van. My heart was pounding. "Wait," I said. "Here, take the money. It's all I have." I pulled out my wallet and handed over $80. The guy took it, thumbed through it, and scowled. "Where's the rest?" "That's it. That's all I brought," I said, barely able to breathe. "Please, just take it and go." He nodded again. 2 guys started moving fast toward the minivan. I ran. I screamed at them not to touch my son. I remember one of them breaking the rear window with a tire iron. The sound of glass shattering mixed with Ryan's terrified scream. It broke me. And then, red and blue lights. A siren, coming fast. A highway patrol car whipped into the lot, tires screeching. The officer inside saw what was happening, flipped on the spotlight, and aimed it directly at the crowd. In an instant, the men bolted. 2 trucks sped off. The third got stuck between me and the cop. The officer jumped out, weapon drawn, yelling commands. Backup was there in less than 5 minutes. Ryan was safe, shaking, crying, but safe. The police questioned us for nearly an hour. I gave them everything I knew. Turned out the guys in the truck that got caught rolled fast. They gave up names, addresses, and even admitted this wasn't the first time they'd lured someone with fake CRAIGSLIST ads. They targeted dads who'd do anything for their kids. The police escorted us home that night. I drove, hands trembling the entire time. Ryan fell asleep holding my arm. I didn't tell Denise everything, just enough to explain the broken window and why Ryan wouldn't stop crying. A few weeks later, the detectives let me know they'd arrested 5 of the 6 men. The only one who got away was the bald guy, the one who made the call, the one who started it all. I never saw his face again. I kept using CRAIGSLIST after that, but never alone. Never at night. Never with my son. The net. We got one eventually. From a neighbor whose kid had gone off to college. Free. But every time I see a black pickup truck, I still check the back for a hockey goal. I didn't even check the neighborhood. That probably sounds reckless, but when you're sleeping in your car and stretching a can of soup across 2 days, details like that don't matter as much. I just needed a place to stay. A bed, a roof, maybe a lock that worked. That CRAIGSLIST listing was like a rope thrown to a drowning person. Live-in cook needed for private estate. Meals included. Private quarters. It almost sounded too good to be true. My name's Aaron Myers. I used to be a sous chef at a high-end restaurant in Chicago before everything went sideways. The pandemic hit, layoffs happened, and the owner quietly shut the place down. My boyfriend, Nate, tried to hold things together for both of us, but he died of a brain aneurysm just a few months later. No warning, just collapsed in the shower. After that, everything fell apart fast. Apartment gone, savings drained, and me driving from shelter to shelter trying to land something, anything. So when I saw that listing, I didn't hesitate. The estate was outside a small town in northern Wisconsin, way off the main highway. Just getting there meant taking a gravel road that wound through dense pine forests. My beat-up Honda wheezed its way up the long driveway, where a massive iron gate opened slowly, as if it had been watching me. Past the gate, the house came into view. An old colonial-style mansion with tall columns, large shuttered windows, and an eerie stillness. Waiting for me on the steps was a man in a dark gray suit. Tall, composed, maybe mid-40s. He introduced himself as Mr. Halverson, the caretaker. "You're Aaron Myers?" he asked, extending a hand. "That's me," I replied, trying to smile like I hadn't been living out of my trunk for 3 weeks. "Prince Julian is not in today," he said, leading me inside. "But he left instructions to get you settled. You'll meet him later." I didn't know what to say to that. Prince? Like royalty? He must have read my expression. His family has held that title for generations. European roots, nothing ceremonial anymore. Just tradition. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I bought it. We passed through an immaculate hallway lined with portraits. They all looked like paintings from the 1800s. Men in military uniforms, women in heavy gowns. At the end of the hall, he opened a side door and led me through a garden path to a smaller brick house, tucked away behind a line of trees. Not exactly a hut, but far from the main house. Private, sure. Secluded, definitely. "This is your place," Mr. Halverson said, unlocking the door. Inside was simple. Wooden floors, a twin bed with a metal frame, a compact bathroom, a kitchenette, and a wired landline phone bolted to the wall. "There's no cell service out here," he added, as if reading my mind. "If the prince or I need you, we'll call this phone." I nodded. "Understood." He paused, hand still on the doorknob. "One thing, don't be alarmed by noises at night. This area can echo." It struck me as odd, but I just smiled and thanked him. After he left, I dropped my duffel bag and sat on the bed, exhaling for what felt like the first time in days. I was alone, but I had a roof, a door, a bed. I could breathe again, or so I thought. That first night was rough, not because of the bed or the silence, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that something was just outside the window. Taps, soft ones, started around 2 a.m. I pulled the curtain back fast, hoping to catch a raccoon or some critter. Nothing. Just the trees swaying gently. At 3:11 a.m., I heard what I could only describe as whimpering. Not animal-like. Human. Muffled. Almost sorrowful. I barely slept. And when I showed up in the main kitchen at 7 a.m., I looked it. "You all right?" asked an older woman who introduced herself as Margaret, the prince's mother. "Didn't sleep well," I admitted. "Probably just nerves. New place." She gave a kind nod. "That little house hasn't been lived in for some time." It can be unsettling, but it gets better. I cooked breakfast. Eggs, toast, some hand-cut potatoes. The prince didn't show. I was told he often kept odd hours. By afternoon, I felt more stable. The day had sunlight, and I figured last night was just my exhausted mind playing tricks. After dinner service, I returned to my quarters. I washed up, climbed into bed, and that's when it started again. Taps, more persistent this time. Then the whimpering, low, like someone in pain. I sat up, my heart pounding. This wasn't just an echo. I got up, turned on the light, and searched every corner. Nothing. But when I pressed my ear to the floor, I heard it clearly. It was coming from beneath the floorboards. The next morning, I cornered Mr. Halverson. "Can I ask, what happened to the last cook?" He looked caught off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," I lied. He hesitated. "Her name was Dana. She came 6 months ago, stayed in that same house, said she liked the solitude. But after 3 weeks, she vanished. Vanished. No signs of struggle. Her belongings were still there. We assumed she left in the night. Her husband came by looking for her, but she was gone. Police were called, but there was nothing conclusive." My stomach turned. "You just, left it at that?" He nodded grimly. "We searched, I assure you, but nothing turned up. It was like she disappeared into thin air." That night the sounds grew unbearable. The taps became bangs, the whimpering, pleading. I snapped. I tore the rug off the floor, searching for any loose boards. I found 3 near the bed, slightly uneven. My hands trembled as I pried one up. Beneath was cloth, white, stained. I pulled it back, and the smell hit me first. Then her face, mummified, contorted in fear. I screamed so loud I lost my voice. The police arrived after Halverson called them. The body was exhumed. It was Dana. An autopsy revealed she'd been strangled. Her husband, who claimed to be looking for her, had stayed one night, long enough to kill her and bury her beneath the floor. He used a mannequin in her clothes to fool the security cameras. Walked out like nothing happened. They arrested him in Milwaukee. He confessed. Claimed she was planning to leave him. I resigned that same day. I drove back to Chicago, parked outside the old restaurant, and cried for an hour. My old life, as painful as it had become, suddenly felt safer than any fresh start. Some doors, especially the ones wide open when you're desperate, should never be walked through. I used to sleep through most of the daylight hours, not because I was lazy or depressed, but because I worked nights. 12-hour shifts at a security job in a business park just outside of Birmingham. Monotonous work, mostly staring at cameras and doing patrols every few hours. But it paid well and kept me afloat. When you live like that, your phone becomes your alarm clock, your calendar, and your only link to the outside world. So when I woke up one afternoon to find over a dozen missed calls and a flood of text messages from my landlord, my stomach dropped. "Call me, emergency, water leak downstairs. We had to shut your water off." I groaned, rolled out of bed, and called him. He didn't waste time sugarcoating it. Apparently, there was a leak in the ceiling of the flat below me, and all signs pointed to it coming from my bathroom. Since I hadn't answered my phone all day, the water to my unit had been shut off hours ago. No water meant no coffee, no shower, and definitely no flushing the toilet. I asked if they were sending someone to fix it, and he said, "It's your flat, your responsibility. Just send me the invoice and I'll reimburse you." Right. I hung up, groggy and irritated, and started calling around. Plumbers I'd found online, people recommended on local Facebook groups, emergency numbers. Everyone was either booked, not answering, or charging ridiculous emergency call-out fees. I was close to giving up when I messaged my friend Amy. She offered to let me crash at her place if things didn't get sorted, and then she said, "Why don't you try CRAIGSLIST?" Sometimes you'll find guys there who'll take quick gigs. I scoffed. Craigslist always seemed shady to me, like a digital Wild West. But I was desperate, and after scrolling through the household services section, I saw it. 38-year-old handyman. Skilled, affordable, fast response. Can do plumbing, electrical, light repairs, text or call. The ad was simple, straight to the point. No company name, just a mobile number. I hesitated, then texted him. He called me back 5 minutes later, introduced himself as Marcus. I explained the situation, and to my surprise, he said, "Yeah, no problem. I can be there in about an hour. Shouldn't take long." He sounded friendly enough, almost chipper. Said it sounded like an easy job, probably just a loose seal or cracked pipe under the floor. I didn't know any better, so I believed him. True to his word, about an hour later he texted, "Outside." I realized I hadn't told him which flat was mine, so I buzzed him in and waited at the door. When I opened it, he looked normal. Jeans, a navy hoodie, tool bag in hand, short, buzzed hair, bit of stubble. Didn't smile much, but didn't look suspicious either. "Bathroom's down the hall," I told him, and he nodded, walking in without hesitation. As he headed to the bathroom, I went back to the kitchen. I was too tired to be a good host. I poured myself some orange juice, hoping the sugar would wake me up a bit. Then he called out, "Hey, can you come take a look at this? Something looks weird." I shuffled over and leaned into the doorway. That's the last thing I remember clearly. The next moment, everything was white light and muffled voices. Someone was saying my name over and over, a woman's voice. "Stay with us, Tom. You're okay. Don't move." I opened my eyes and blinked against the harsh light. It was a flashlight, being shown in my eyes by a paramedic. My head throbbed. My mouth was dry. I tried to sit up, but hands held me down gently. "You've had a head injury. Try not to move. We're taking you to the hospital." My heart was pounding now. I turned my head and saw Amy standing nearby, crying. She had come to check on me when I didn't respond to her messages. Thank God she had a spare key. "He's okay, right?" "He's going to be okay?" she asked them. I saw her face, pure fear, and something inside me just gave way. I started shaking. They wheeled me out of the flat, and I heard one of the EMTs say something about potential concussion and how lucky I was. If Amy hadn't come by, I could have bled out slowly. At the hospital, they ran tests, kept me awake, and had me describe everything I remembered, which wasn't much. It wasn't until a detective came to talk to me that I found out the rest. TV gone, laptop, my cash, my jewelry, everything valuable, gone. My bedroom had been tossed. He hadn't touched the bathroom. Not a single tile was out of place. "We've had a few of these lately," the officer told me. "Craigslist handyman, comes in with some story, knocks the person out, takes their valuables. No fingerprints, always a different number." They hadn't caught him. They weren't even sure if it was the same guy in all the cases, just the same MO. I didn't have renter's insurance. I got a scar on my cheekbone from where I hit the floor. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came after. I didn't leave the flat for weeks. I ignored calls, let food rot. I started keeping a kitchen knife beside my bed. I bought a camera for the door and stared at it for hours some days, just waiting. Even now, years later, I flinch when someone knocks unexpectedly. I jump when I hear footsteps in the hallway. I stopped trusting people. I couldn't date, couldn't have people over. Amy tried to help. She really did. But she moved away for work eventually, and after that, I was just alone. The scars healed, mostly. I let my beard grow to cover it. But some things you can't cover. The quiet panic when you hear a noise at night. The instinct to lock every door twice. The guilt of trusting the wrong person. So yeah, Craigslist taught me a lesson. One I'll never forget. The scars healed, mostly. I let my beard grow to cover it, but some things you can't cover. The quiet panic when you hear a noise at night, the instinct to lock every door twice, the guilt of trusting the wrong person. Amy tried to help. She really did. But she moved away for work eventually, and after that, I was just alone. The scars still there, under it all. But last week, I finally put the knife back in the drawer. Not because I feel safe, but because I want to. That has to be enough, for now.